that operation has come to an end, that it will be in compliance with international law. The judges did say they must halt this operation immediately. Jose, our team on the ground inside Gaza says rather than halting, they say Israeli airstrikes are intensifying at this hour. Jose.
And meanwhile, Raf, Israel's military says they recovered the bodies of 3 hostages killed during the October 7th massacre.
Yeah, that's right, Jose. So this is 3 bodies recovered from northern Gaza. In the middle of your screen there, you can see Orion Hernandez. He is a dual French-Mexican national. He was kidnapped, killed from that Supernova music festival, along with his girlfriend, Shani Luke, and her body was recovered in the same area of northern Gaza a week ago. So another grim discovery by the Israeli military in northern Gaza. This does give these grieving families perhaps a little bit of closure, an opportunity to bury their dead. There are 125 hostages still inside Gaza, according to Israel's government. 39 of them are confirmed to be dead. But the fear here in Israel is that the actual number may be much higher than that. Jose.
And Ralph, CIA Director Bill Burns heading back to the area in an effort to revive ceasefire negotiations.
Yeah, once again, Jose, CIA Director Bill Burns heading to Paris. He's due to meet with the head of the Mossad spy agency and the Prime Minister of Qatar, and he is trying to jumpstart these ceasefire talks, which have been so badly stalled for so long. You'll remember, Jose, the last time there was a ceasefire, the last time hostages were released was the end of November last year. It has now been 231 days since October 7th, 231 days of those hostages being in captivity, 231 days of this intense fighting causing such misery inside Gaza. And I have to tell you, Jose, there is not a whole lot of optimism that the CIA director or anyone else is going to be able to get these ceasefire talks back over the line again. Jose.
Raf Sanchez in Tel Aviv, thank you so much. Back here at home, we are also following the latest developments in the race for the White House. For the first time in years, former President Donald Trump held a rally in New York. The event in the South Bronx was framed as an effort to reach out to Black and Latino voters.
African Americans are getting slaughtered. Hispanic Americans are getting slaughtered. And these millions and millions of people that are coming into our country, the biggest impact and the biggest negative impact is against our black population and our Hispanic population, who are losing their jobs, losing their housing, losing everything they can lose.
With us now, NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns, who was at last night's rally, Ashley Etienne, former communications director for Vice President Harris, and Brendan Buck, former press secretary to House Speakers Boehner and Ryan, and an MSNBC political analyst. So, Dasha, what was it like there last night?
Yeah, Jose, you said it there. He was in the Bronx, in a blue state, in a very blue area of the state that he lost by a really wide margin in the last election. But this was part of that push to engage Black and Latino voters. And I will tell you, it was a diverse crowd. Yeah, there were some folks from New Jersey, from Westchester, but I met a lot of people at that rally, Jose, who were born and raised in the Bronx. Black residents, Hispanic residents, immigrants who actually, and this might be counterintuitive, but did agree with former President Trump's position on immigration. There was a lot of talk in his speech that was pretty New York-centric. He painted a pretty bleak image of New York City as a city in decline at one point, talking about, quote, filthy encampments and lunatics killing people. But as I talked to voters in that crowd, Jose, it was really fascinating because we've seen these numbers. We've seen the polling where Biden is struggling to shore up that base with Black and Hispanic voters, and we've seen some of those folks start to gravitate towards Trump. I want you to take a listen to some of the conversations I had at the rally. Listen.
It's too much crime. Everything is going downhill. The economy is going bad. The food is expensive. It's like affordable housing is not for everybody. It's just horrible.
I want food to go cheaper. The gas, I want gas cheaper. When I came and he was the president, the gas was a lot cheaper than it is right now.
Now we're becoming the Bronx second-class citizens. We have this influx of migrants are coming in, and they're getting everything. And everyone in the Bronx, in the city of New York, is forgotten.
And Jose, a lot of the people I talked to were first-time voters. Some had never been to a Trump event before. Some had voted for Obama twice and voted for Biden and are now saying they are going to vote for former President Trump in November. Look, a lot is going to happen over the next 6 months, but this is something I've been hearing consistently from voters, and that's why you're seeing some of the more aggressive push from the Biden campaign to try to shore up their base, to try to rally those voters. But some really fascinating and somewhat unexpected conversations last night, Jose.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan, the last Republican to win New York was Reagan in '84. Is there any thoughts in the Trump team that anything similar to that could happen in 2024?
I sure hope they don't think that. No, that's not going to happen. But I think it is a very real dynamic here that Black and Hispanic voters for a long time now have been showing a much higher interest in voting for somebody other than Joe Biden. I don't think this is a situation where they all of a sudden love what Donald Trump has to offer. But Donald Trump is very good at blaming people and telling people who to blame for their problems. And that's, I think, what is going on here. It's very early. I don't think Donald Trump is going to win 20% of these populations by any measure. I think the Biden campaign is probably going to be able to close this gap significantly. The problem, I think, for the Biden folks is the opportunity cost of doing that. This should be a core part of your coalition who you don't have to be worrying about at this stage of an election, rather than being able to focus on, say, Nikki Haley voters, people, soft Republicans. They find themselves trying to shore up what has been, particularly for Joe Biden, a core fundamental part of his voting bloc. So Trump is very good at being showy. He's very good at blaming people. The Biden team has a lot of work to do. This is real. There's not a lot of easy solutions, especially with cost of living. But my bigger concern for the Biden folks is what you're not doing while you're trying to win back this argument.
Ashley, I think it's also somewhat dangerous to buy into the narrative that Biden and Democrats are losing African-American majority votes, or the Latino vote is, up for grabs on block. I don't see anybody looking close to what George W. Bush got from the Latino votes, for example. Just wondering, though, but from the Biden campaign perspective, what is it that this message is?
Well, I mean, I think that there are those within the Black and the Latino community that identify with former President Trump's grievance message. There's no doubt about that there's a lack of trust that exists between those communities and the Democratic Party. So that means President Biden has some work to do. But here's the other reality that that came to me as I was watching the rally last night that I don't think we have an appreciation for. It is incredibly hard to message against someone who's a liar and who isn't being held to account on those lies. I mean, Trump gets to the mic and just spews one after the other, and there's no one holding him account to those lies. And then you've got an entire conservative media apparatus that's perpetuating these lies. So that's really the challenge. And, Brendan and I are communicators, and we know, I mean, that's the hardest thing to do, is to go up and message against a liar. And we've never seen one to this extent that's willing to go as far as Trump is to really not just stir the pot, but to really cause those divisions within the party and fracture the country and the nation, honestly, about all of these issues.
Yeah, and talk about fracturing and about divisions. Dasha, Trump's rally came one day after former rival Nikki Haley said she would vote for him. Trump responded to her comments last night. What did he have to say?
Yeah, so this is where we're seeing some really interesting, I don't want to necessarily call it realignment, but a shift among both Democrats and Republicans. Because, look, what you're seeing now is those Nikki Haley voters. She's been getting some 15 to 20, sometimes above that percent in some battleground states months after she dropped out of the race. So for former President Trump, for his campaign, it's important to try to extend that olive branch to win over some of those voters. that are really skeptical, that clearly wanted to send a message when they voted for Nikki Haley that they're not comfortable with Trump leading the party. So take a listen to how he responded to her saying she's going to vote for him. Listen.
Well, I think she's going to be on our team because we have a lot of the same ideas, the same thoughts. I appreciated what she said. You know, we had a nasty campaign. It was pretty nasty. But she's a very capable person, and I'm sure she's going to be on our team in some form. Absolutely.
And while there is some concern among Black and Latino voters that they might be getting chipped away at by Trump, the Biden campaign has been starting to try to go after those Haley voters, particularly in Pennsylvania. They doubled their ad spending targeting Haley voters, specifically trying to bring them over to their side. So it's just a really fascinating landscape out there, Jose, when you're talking to voters who are trying to figure out, what camp do they belong in right now as our politics is kind of upside down at the moment.
Yeah, and Brendan, the New York Times reporting today that Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton has unexpectedly emerged as a top contender to be Trump's running mate. That, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of Trump's thinking. What do you make of that?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, what Donald Trump is going to be looking for is somebody who will repeat his messaging without any pause. And Tom Cotton is a very aggressive conservative who, particularly on matters of foreign policy, makes no apologies for having very conservative views, and somebody who I think Donald Trump will be able to rely on pretty consistently to back him up. Now, usually you think about things like, does this person expand my coalition at all? I don't know that does that here, but I think Donald Trump is looking for things a little bit differently, particularly after the Mike Pence experience. His number one priority is going to be loyalty, and I think Tom Cotton is somebody he thinks would probably be pretty loyal to him.
And actually, we were just listening to Dasha talking about the top issues that the folks that were at the Trump rally were talking about. Immigration is clearly one of the top issues, and everyone seems to have a different perspective or even definition of what immigration is or is not. How important is immigration for both Biden and Trump this year?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a weapon that both parties are going to try to use to their advantage. I mean, you've seen the votes in the Senate where Schumer sort of compelled votes to double down on this narrative that Republicans are abandoning a bill that they actually wrote. And then you see on the other side where Republicans are, again, pointing the finger at and blaming Joe Biden for what's happening at the border, although they refuse to come to the table and advance a bill that they've actually written. That really is a sort of a dream wish list for conservatives. But I'd love to go back, if you don't mind, to this issue of
yes,
because I think it's really important. What we're seeing right now is the Republican Party is in a complete and total identity crisis. It's no longer the party of Reagan, no longer the party of Lincoln. They're all behind Donald Trump. What was a party that staunchly was for the Constitution now is supporting somebody who said they're going to walk away from the Constitution on day one and lead as a dictator. So I think Pence is the model and the example that Nikki Haley and Cotton, all these people should be at the forefront of their minds. This is what you get when you cozy up to Donald Trump. You get threats on your life. You know what I mean? You also run the risk, the party runs the risk of becoming another failed enterprise of Donald Trump's, just like those states, just like those bogus universities, and just like his, claims to be a billionaire. That's the real risk that this party continues to run, that they're going to continue to be on the losing end, and the American people see right through it.
Dasha Burns, Ashley Etienne, and Brendan Buck, thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. Up next, Congressman Richie Torres, who represents the Bronx.